Hello, it's Liz Ann here. Today I wanted to talk to you about emotional pain and help you to maybe with some ideas on how to move emotional pain through. I hear a lot of, and I've been through it too myself, but I hear a lot of crying out done sometimes of people that get to a place where I can't take this pain anymore. I'm having such a hard time today. I couldn't go to work, or I just spent all day in bed because, I can't function. I'm emotionally it's too much for me. Everything I've been through, I can't deal with it right now. And I totally, completely 100% understand that. I've been there many times myself. And the thing is, it's very important that we learn how to take the pain that we're dealing with and how to allow it to move through. So, as an analogy, it's very common when people are physically not feeling well and to avoid what's going on, the true situation of what's going on, to avoid going to the doctor, I keep getting a headache, so I'm going to keep taking an aspirin. I keep getting heartburn, I'm going to keep taking the Tums. And I don't feel good, I feel tired, but I just keep pressing through. I'm going to keep drinking coffee and drink more coffee or whatever it is. But we notice, we have these warning signals, and it's basically our body sending out this SOS. It's saying, help, I need help. There's something going on, there's something out of balance, there's something not right. And the pain is that warning signal that something is not right. And so it's really common, though, for people to ignore those SOS signs, to mask them with something else, until it becomes a crisis situation, until suddenly they collapse, they have a heart attack, and they just can't function any longer. And then they seek professional help. And it's like, by that time, it's a crisis situation, and now a lot of times it's a big wake-up call, and now they're willing to become proactive in their healing because they realize, wow, this is really serious, and if I don't do something about it, I might not live very much longer. And so they might change their diet, they might have to go through some surgery, just different things. And it's the same thing with emotional pain. We all know that we're not just a physical body, we're also an emotional body, and we're a spiritual body. And they all work together. They're all intertwined, and it's important that we take care of all of them. They all affect each other. If we're not feeling physically good, it's going to affect us emotionally. If we're not feeling emotionally good, it's going to affect us physically and spiritually. I mean, it's a web. It all interlinks. And so, emotionally, a lot of times, our emotions are sending out SOS signs. We may find ourselves just feeling down in the dumps a lot, and we're not quite sure why, or sometimes maybe we just cry really easy, feeling depressed. We may find that we're having anger bouts, just feeling really angry at times, and we don't really know why we feel so agitated and angry. And we may find that we have days that we just want to pull the curtains and just stay in bed, and we may find that we're lacking motivation to just live life, and those are classic. A lot of those are classic signs of depression. Depression is an SOS sign that something emotionally is not right. And so, again, we tend to want to not deal with, or maybe we don't know how to deal with it a lot of times too, what is the core problem going on, and we want to mask it. So we may get busier in life, we may want to do good deeds to help lift our spirits, we may want to, we start exercising, working. Some of us do it in very unhealthy ways. Some of us may, drink, when we're feeling that way, or, use some kind of a drug to help us to feel better. Some of us get into all kinds of unhealthy relationships, or we keep going from one relationship to another, and when we realize that it's not filling that emotional need, we break off that relationship because now we found one that is going to do it, and so we go from relationship to relationship. And so there's many unhealthy ways that we try to mask the symptoms, and then sometimes, if that isn't completely taken care of, again, that crisis can hit where we have a complete emotional breakdown. We may attempt suicide. We may run away from home or just do something very drastic or just have a complete meltdown where we just cry and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry hysterically. That's what happened to me when that was my wake-up call one day, that I came to a point where I just had this huge meltdown, and it lasted for a couple days where I just cried nonstop. And I kept repeating to myself, about things that had happened in my childhood and things that I wished were different. And I never realized that those were bothering me so deeply until this emotional crisis happened. And so I had to back up, and I'm in a crisis now. Oh my word, I need healing, I need help. So we need to learn how to move that pain through, because what happens is when we go through something that is traumatic or very emotionally charged and it hasn't moved through, then it becomes locked into us, basically. When it hasn't been processed and dealt with and moved through, it becomes locked inside of us, and it's kind of frozen in there. And your body, it's kind of like a sickness that hasn't been healed, and your body eventually is going to start sending out these, sometimes it might just start out small, you hardly even notice it's there, but then it just becomes louder and louder and louder. A lot of people call this, there's a term, PTSD. PTSD, when people hear PTSD, they think of, oh, that's somebody that comes back from the war, they have they hear a backfire on a car and they run and hide in the bush because they think they're back in the war again. Yes, on the extreme level of PTSD, that does happen, but there is a spectrum. There is a very wide spectrum of PTSD. And so on the extreme end, yes, that does happen. But on the, anywhere in between there, we can have different symptoms of depression, not wanting, or eating and sleeping habits have changed, having nightmares, avoiding places, people, and things that bring up those uncomfortable feelings. And you can Google PTSD symptoms, and you'll find that there's quite a few out there that might pertain to what you're going through. And so what needs to happen is we need to stop. And when we're having that pain, we need to be able to say, okay, this pain is here. What am I going to do with it now? How do I deal with this? Instead of avoiding it and pushing it aside. Now, obviously, not 24/7 are we able to go, okay, how am I going to deal with this pain? I'm at work today. I can't just sit down and deal with this pain. But we need to make that time. If we're finding it coming up at work, maybe we need to say, okay, tonight, for a couple hours, I'm going to take time and I'm going to really deal with what's coming up. I'm going to make a note. This is what's on my mind. I'll make a little note to myself, and I'm going to deal with this because it needs to be dealt with. There's so much that comes along with pain. There's messages, negative messages that came with it, fears. There's physical sensations that you might have that come along with it. Things that need to be addressed. So I just wanted to talk a little bit today about some of the ways that I have learned to help move pain through and to help work with it. Number one, I'm always going to tell people, if you can, if at all possible, find a good therapist. You need to have somebody that's objective, that's neutral, that you can talk to, that you have that space of time that's just for you, and you can talk about anything to them and let them know what's going on so you can process. Because we largely process through talking. We process so much through just talking about it and talking about it, talking about it. That's why when people are in an accident or something, they tell people over and over and over and over all the details they went through. And this is a way that they're processing through this until they just leave off telling about it anymore, because it's been processed, it's gone, and maybe, every couple of years somebody asks about it and they might tell about it, but they've processed through it. But if we haven't done that with our trauma, we still need to do that. And a therapist helps keep us, also will help not only listen, but they help keep us balanced, and maybe not digging in too much, too fast at once. Help keep us, they can give us ideas of, how we can work through things. They can help us see things that maybe we, angles of the situation that we weren't looking at and that we didn't see. But most importantly, it's a person to talk to that listens to you. So I always suggest, number one, find a good therapist. And, if you try one and you just find, I just can't talk to this person, go on to another one. But, it does take time. When you are looking for a therapist, it does take time to establish trust. So don't just hop from therapist to therapist. Give it some time, and just work with that therapist for a while. And then if you just feel like, this isn't going anywhere, then that's another thing. You can move on to another one. Some of the ways that I have worked through pain, one that was huge for me in the beginning was to write letters, journal, and write letters to my child self. And I remember in the beginning when I heard of this, I felt so silly, because what you do is with your dominant hand, you write a letter to the child self in you. So you think of a period of time that you want to talk to the child that was traumatized in that time. Something will come to you, it'll just surface, and then you write, maybe call that child, like I used to call little Elizabeth, give it a name that differentiates the child self from who you are today. And just, say something like, how are you? I haven't talked to you for a long time, but I really want to get to know you again and get in touch with you, and I miss you, or whatever comes to your heart. Just talk to that child self. Maybe you could ask how they're feeling, what's going on. And then with your non-dominant hand, which is very hard, it takes time, but it's good for processing and being slow about it, you start letting that little child write back to you. And just let whatever comes, just let it flow out. Just get in touch with that little child and just let it flow out as a child would. Sometimes I used crayons, because children like to write with crayons and they like color. But anything to put me in touch with that child. And if, you feel kind of silly at first, but it's just you and the paper. You don't, nobody else has to read it. Nobody else has to know about it if you don't want to. But just try it. It really helps. Another thing is journaling. Journaling your, I say journaling, I'm quite the writer, but journaling your dreams. When you have a dream that you wake up from and it's had a great impact on you, I always get up and I have a private blog that nobody reads, and I type out my dream. I might look at the dream journal and just see if anything could have significance, if it resonates with me or not. But most importantly, I look into the meanings behind the dream, like the feelings I had behind it. What was going on? What was the feeling? I'll bring my dreams sometimes to my therapist, and she helps me a lot in seeing the dreams from angles that really just open my eyes to what I'm going through. It usually really pertains to the pain that's trying to come up, or something that in the way it is affecting me even today. It's just amazing what that can do. Another thing is movement. Sometimes, like in panic attacks, a panic attack, you feel like, you feel like you can't breathe, you can't get your breath. It's a trapped feeling. A panic attack is a very trapped feeling. And so it's important that you move that away, and sometimes just pushing that away physically over and over, and just pushing it out of your space, that feeling, and making yourself big again. Because when you're panicking, you're making yourself small. You're feeling like, I gotta hide, I gotta get under, but pushing it out and feeling the power of that I'm safe, I'm not letting that in my space, and pushing it out, maybe with some breath, and then just letting that energy out and pushing it away from you is one. Anger. My therapist has told me, I've never done this one particular, but she's told me before, chopping wood is good for anger. One thing that always sounded really good to me is if I could get in a room and just throw glass, sometimes when I have strong anger coming up. But something that you physically, maybe a punching bag, that you can physically move the anger through, because that energy needs to move through. It needs to flow, not be locked in. If you don't get it to flow, somehow, some way, it gets locked into the body, and it continues to bother you. So it needs to move through. Also, journaling to not just the child self, but also to that voice This is another thing I did early on. You can name it, you know, the monster. You can name it whatever you want, something that identifies that negative voice that tells you negative things about yourself or about your situation. You know, nobody loves you, or could tell you, you know, you're a horrible mother, you're a horrible housewife, you know, you never can get it together, your house is a mess. Anything negative that just makes you feel, again, small and just like not as good as anybody else, you know, just wants to make you hide and you just feel rotten. Start journaling to that monster and letting them know how you feel about them and their interrogation, their constant writing on you and pulling you down. Start fighting back in your journaling, saying, I'm not going to take this anymore. Become your own best friend. That's so important. Another thing is any form of art. Art is so therapeutic. I draw sometimes my feelings, what's coming up. Sometimes there's just no words to describe your memories. They did happen in childhood. They happened before you had vocabulary. And there's just nothing to describe the pain. It's just like trying to describe labor pain. You know, how do you describe that to somebody? You know, how do you tell them what that feels like? And sometimes pain is just beyond words. And so art, poetry, I'll write poetry and that helps sometimes, but I'll draw it. And I'm a horrible drawer, but I'll draw it to the best of my ability, exactly what's popping up in my head. And it's important, again, when you write, when you draw, whenever you are able and feel safe to, that you share this with somebody else, whether it's your therapist or a good, safe friend. The more you share it and the more you talk about it, the more it's going to move through and the less power it's going to hold over you. Because one of the biggest, most binding powers over that hold pain inside and shame and all those things that come with it is silencing. Telling that person, you have to carry that by yourself. You have to hide that. You cannot share that. You're going to hurt somebody else. You're going to, you know, make a mess if you share that, whatever. It disempowers that person. It keeps them in that victim mode and in that survival mode. As soon as you start talking about it and being transparent and letting it go, and it doesn't just happen overnight. I mean, safety is utmost important. You should always feel safe. You should never overstep that sense of safety, but just starting at little tiny steps. You know, can I tell a little bit to my therapist? Can I talk a little bit about this to my husband? Sometimes you're going to get reactions that you don't like, and you're not going to feel safe about that. So you can say, okay, I can't talk to that person about it. They make me feel unsafe, but I can talk to this person about it. And so, you know, when I get an opportunity, or if I really need to, this is a person, a safe person I can talk to. It's really important to share what's coming up for you. Meditation is another thing. I mention meditation all the time, but it's really good to just, you know, get in a meditative state and to get your mind still and just let your mind be free from all clutter and let things go. You know, that helps. That's like letting the stress go, just going through your whole body and just letting it go, letting all the thoughts go for a while and just resting your mind and your body. So meditation practices are really, really helpful too. And I'll probably do another meditation video. I have a couple of them already that you can check out if you'd like to, but also I'll probably be doing another one that's been helping me a lot. A resource that I always suggest is Teal Swan. I am going to put in the links below on some of the videos that she's done that's helped me to be able to get to the core of some of my pain and move it through. I think she's wonderful. She has been phenomenally helpful to me. And so she's one resource too that you might look to. And I think that's all. I don't want this video to be too long, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about moving that pain through, and I hope it's helped you in any way. If it has, please leave a comment below. Any way it may have helped you, or any other suggestions you may have, any questions you may have. I would love to have comments, and definitely a thumbs up if you liked the video. I sure appreciate that, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.